Well, good afternoon, good morning, good day. Uh, my name is John Schrader. Welcome to the Data Lakehouse Advantage webinar. Today's June 5th, and I appreciate you guys joining us today. As the team mentioned, please add any other questions or chat in the chat or Q&A section. We'll try and cover those at the end of the presentation today. But again, welcome. Appreciate you guys joining us. My name again is John Schrader. I'm a director here at Bekaert. I help lead the analytics and automation services team, coming to you live from beautiful Greenville, South Carolina. And my colleague Mike McDonald is joining us today. He's a director also and leads our data and analytics services practice. I'm just the warm-up show. Mike is the main act, so you'll want to stick around and listen to what Mike has to say. So here's the agenda for this webinar. We're going to go through the why, what, and how of a data lakehouse. And then Mike's going to walk you through kind of a live demo of what our platform looks like, and then walk through case study, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. But again, feel free to add your questions along the way so you don't forget them, and we'll try and cover off on those at the end of the presentation. So start with why. That's what Simon Sinek says. So we're going to start with why. We live in the most data-rich era in history. In fact, it is estimated that 90% of the world's data was generated in the last 2 years alone. So gone are the days of bytes and kilobytes. Now we live in the world of terabytes, petabytes, and exabytes. So it is estimated that the global humanity generates about 402 exabytes of data daily. So vast, it would take us 31 billion years to count. So just the staggering volume of data raises questions about how do we process and utilize this data effectively. Around 181 zettabytes of data will be generated in 2025, and videos account for over half of that traffic and that storage. There are over 10,000 data centers worldwide, and over half of those are within the United States, and that seems to be growing almost daily these days. Just the sheer volume of data centers going up, it seems, in my area is staggering. So there's a shift in our thinking. The scale of the data generation is enormous. So our challenge ahead of us is, how do we process and utilize this data effectively? How do we pick out the most important things from this vast amount of data and then make sense of it? We're going to try and help you answer some of those questions today. We can measure almost anything today with IoT sensors, GPS locations, human health monitors. It is incredible what data is available to us. But as Peter Drucker says, what gets measured gets managed. So even if we have data available to us, doesn't mean that it's important to look at, or it's called down to what we really need to measure. Another variation of this is you can't improve what you don't measure. This highlights the importance of data-driven decision-making. When businesses actively track key performance indicators, they are more likely to take action to improve them. For example, if a company measures customer satisfaction, it will invest in better service strategies. So we believe that businesses need quantifiable insights to optimize their processes of their operations and their financials. If a company wants to enhance its marketing strategy per se, it must first analyze engagement metrics. So without measurement, improvements are based on guesswork. These sayings align well with the data lakehouse, where businesses consolidate structured and unstructured data to measure trends effectively. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Let's start off with the analytics maturity model. The analytics maturity model outlines the progression of an organization's ability to leverage data for decision making. It helps businesses assess where they stand and identify steps to improve their analytics capabilities. So foundational, organizations begin recognizing value in their data, but lack structured analytics. Descriptive, businesses start analyzing historical data to understand what happened using data, dashboards and reports. Diagnostic, This is where companies move beyond basic reporting and determine why something happened. So maybe root cause analysis or deeper analytics and correlations. Up to this point, it's been primarily looking backwards or history. Then we move into predictive, which is where organizations leverage machine learning or statistical models to forecast what could happen. Then we move into prescriptive, which is recommendations of how to improve outcomes, optimizing business strategies. And then finally, cognitive, which is fully autonomous, AI-driven, real-time decision-making, allowing businesses to adapt dynamically in changing conditions. So as you can see in the chart on the right, as an organization matures, it requires more and more data to be effective. That as indicated on the arrow, with the arrow to the left of the chart. This is why we feel data lakehouse is a data lakehouse is a core piece to your organization's data analytics strategy. Big data is necessary in machine learning and artificial intelligence models. And the more data you have available, the more accurate your models will be. So what I want to take us through here in the next couple minutes is just some use cases. And I know there's a lot of industries represented on this webinar today, but I will be using kind of manufacturing distribution as the use case. So let's just start with operations. Typically, you don't want to report or do a lot of analytics reporting on your operational data. And so that's, again, why we would recommend a data lakehouse or some other place to store to be able to do deep analytics and not impact your operational systems. So let's take the example here. Foundational, a manufacturing company begins tracking machine uptime and downtime manually or in spreadsheets, and they are in spreadsheet hell. Excel is not a database, but that's the foundation. We've got to have the data from somewhere. Descriptive, an industrial plant implements IoT sensors to monitor this equipment uptime and downtime. They generate reports showing past maintenance issues and production efficiency trends. Diagnostic would be a factory uses analytics to determine why certain machines fail more frequently and historical trends. At this point, all the information, again, is looking kind of in the rear view mirror. The next step in the maturity is now trying to predict the future or forecast. So predictive, the manufacturer applies machine learning to predict when machines might require maintenance based on historical breakdown patterns. And then prescriptive would be the manufacturer integrates machine learning analytics to recommend optimal maintenance schedules, reducing downtimes and maximizing machine lifespan. And then cognitive would be fully automated AI-powered robots that adjust production schedules in real time based on demand fluctuations. This was, the operations side of the business. Now let's look at some financial analytics maturity. Foundational, an organization implements an ERP system to track financial vitality and viability accurately. That's a foundational measure. Then they move from there into descriptive. They track current and historical revenue trends. We help a lot of organizations today with consolidated profit and loss statements or other financial statements. This is descriptive. Diagnostic, determine why expenses exceed forecasts by analyzing deviations in financial results. Predictive, use machine learning models to predict revenue streams based on market indicators. In this predictive example, you can see the inclusion of outside data into the analytics. Data lakehouses are critical for including external data sources. And then prescriptive, identify optimal debt and equity ratios for long-term financial stability. And then cognitive, automate dynamic pricing strategies for financial products and services. You get the idea. Now I believe we have a polling question. Polling question number 1. Based on a better understanding of analytics maturity model, where would you rate your organization? So this is a little bit of self-examination. Do you feel like you're at the foundational level, really just collecting data and no real analytics? Don't feel bad. That's where a lot of organizations are, still using a lot of spreadsheets and other forms of metrics and reporting. Are you descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive, or beyond? Let us know. Thanks for your honesty, and um, the the overwhelming answer is descriptive. So still early on in your analytics maturity, but good insight into kind of where you are and where you want to go. All right, so we talked a little bit about why a data lake house. Now let's talk about what a data lake house is. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, things like data warehouse, data mart, central repository, reporting and analytics. Historically, data warehouses have been a structured way to capture data and run analytics, but they have lacked, a lot of flexibility in handling unstructured data, such as email, social media, customer feedback, other forms of media in non-textual formats like video. And data warehouses have struggled with handling real-time data feeds efficiently with the advent of IoT, information or Internet of Things. Essentially, data lakehouses remove the trade-offs between data lakes and data warehouses. Data lakes have been good at capturing structured and unstructured data, but they do lack some of the querying capabilities, the structured querying capabilities. That's where data lakehouses come in. It combines both of the best of both worlds. It removes any trade-offs between, flexibility and structured querying. Um, so it's just a way of the best way that we know how to do analytics and mature your organizations along the curve. So what is a lake house and how does it work? Um, what a lake house does is really just provides flexibility of a data lake, which allows for structured, unstructured data, but it also has a structured querying language like SQL-based analytics. And you can also build models, warehouse models within the lake house. And then it also unifies storage and processing. They can perform, business can perform AI-driven analytics without costly, extract, transform, and load processes. So some key advantages to a lake house is unified architecture. It combines structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data in one platform. It supports SQL-based analytics and AI machine learning workloads seamlessly. And then it cost efficiency is greatly increased or reduced. Cost is reduced based over data warehouses because you can tweak your costs of storage and compute. Typical data warehouses will just have one price based on different tiers of where you are. Whereas the data lakehouse, if you're more compute heavy in your analytics workloads, then you can scale up compute only. Or if you're more data storage heavy, you can scale up your data storage separate from your compute. And so you're optimizing your cost efficiency. There are a lot of other things around, scalability, flexibility, real time, and advanced analytics, again, like using machine learning and AI models pretty seamlessly. And then just security from a security perspective, it's just the place is the data lake house. So where would you want to build your lake house? In the cloud, of course. Um, None of the lake house architectures that we're going to talk about today can be run on premise. They're typically run in a cloud, either Azure or AWS or Google. So the cloud obviously will allow for scalability and cost efficiency and real-time processing and AI integration, security, compliance, and simplified management and maintenance. So those are some key areas of why the cloud. The cloud's important in just your organization as you grow. The cloud is secure. There's a lot of high secure areas within the cloud for GDPR or HIPAA compliance or other things that you've got to maintain from a security perspective. So on which platform? We are both a Databricks and a Microsoft partner. So we support Both of these two platforms, um, the Azure Databricks and Microsoft Fabric, are both very powerful platforms, and but they serve a little different purpose, and they have distinct architectures. Databricks is designed for big data processing, machine learning, and AI workloads. It excels in data engineering, real-time analytics, and collaborative data science, while easily allowing Power BI or Tableau visualizations to utilize its data. Databricks is a cloud agnostic and can run in Azure, AWS, or Google. This platform is what we typically recommend for our customers, especially in the mid-market, smaller mid-market. And then you've got Microsoft Fabric. We're a Microsoft partner as well, and we can support Microsoft Fabric, which is a unified analytics platform that integrates data engineering, data integration, and business intelligence. It's tightly woven into Power BI. Again, we can support both platforms as needed. So how can we help you onboard your data lakehouse? This is just a simple model that we try and leverage. We have a simple approach of connect, decide, and automate. Connect is really, we start by quickly provisioning your data lakehouse on Azure Databricks, let's say, and then work to connect various data sources, systems, and teams to create a single source of truth. This involves integrating ERP, CRM, and other source systems to represent your data. It breaks down data silos to improve collaboration across departments. So that's the connect. Decide is now using that data for data-driven decision-making, identifying your key performance indicators, helping with predictive analytics models, things like that, so we can try and help move you up the maturity curve. Then we start applying, machine learning and AI-driven insights. That's going to want to be driven off of the raw data, not the curated data that may be in some of your models. And so that's why it's important to have a lakehouse. You have raw information, but you also have curated data for some of your KPI reporting and dashboards. And then finally, automate. This would be, streamlining your data operations through workflow automation, automating your tasks, automating your data ingestion on a repetitive basis. Data lakehouses handle real-time integration with IoT and other devices very, very well. So, we would set up your data integration and automation platform. So again, connect, decide, and automate. Data lakehouses are really good at this, and we want to help you even try and measure some of the intangible things like customer satisfaction, brand value, reputational risk, customer sentiment, things like that. So a lot of different things that we can try and help you measure. So what does this all mean from a business perspective and an impact to your business? I just put a couple kind of client testimonials up on the screen. It's the first one would be a healthcare client of ours where they've got a waterfall report that helps them understand kind of their revenue, what their revenue forecast looks like, and when to expect kind of that influx of revenue based on outstanding accounts receivable or other things. And then another customer of ours that is in the medical field as well, they do have sales reps, and they want to track on-label potential finder by territory, and their sales reps are by territory. So we need to report, by territory historical, but also what is the potential in their market based on their competition. Another one would be our CapEx cash flow planning tool with budget to actual projections. A big media client of ours uses a tool, and we have some advanced reporting around the CapEx process. We have a construction client who does long-term large projects, commercial projects, and they have a balance to complete forecast analytics that helps them and their leadership team really understand their future profitability and what that looks like. So we track, revenue, costs, and profitability into the future, so they can help with their cash flow analysis. Other use cases are machine learning production forecasts to augment human intelligence around, demand planning and forecasting, how many pants to make, how many shirts to make, what styles, what sizes, combinations, things like that in a data lakehouse machine learning way. So hopefully these use cases they prime the pump and give you some ideas as to what your organization could look like in moving up the maturity curve. Our goal here at Cherry Bekaert is to come alongside you and help you take the next step along your analytics maturity journey. As my coworker Toby Stansel once said, he said, "Data doesn't lie, but it might not tell the whole story." We want to help you tell more of your organization's story, and we are convinced that Data Lakehouse is a foundational aspect to establish your data-driven decision-making culture. I think at this point we have another poll question. And poll question number 2 is, what is your organization's biggest challenge in adopting a lakehouse, do you think? I've told you a little bit about why and what a lake house is, but what do you think that the biggest challenge might be to implementing one in your organization? Is it cost or ROI justification? Is it difficult to integrate to your systems? Is there a lack of data governance, that your data is not clean, or scaling for analytics and AI is maybe a concern? Let us know. Awesome. Again, thank you for the feedback. Looks like most said integration with existing systems. Mike's going to try and cover off on some of that. We have some integration accelerators that he'll cover off on. And then some of you said cost and ROI justification as well. So, hopefully we can answer some of those questions later in the webinar. But thanks again for your feedback and your candid feedback. So again, at this point in time, I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Mike. Mike, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks, John. Thanks everyone for joining today. Appreciate your time. I have 2 more slides to go through, and then we're going to get into a live demo, but I just wanted to give you an overview of the components in a modern data estate. We're focused today on that box in the middle there that says Databricks Lakehouse, and that's what I'm going to be showing you. That is what's available on any cloud. Like this implementation, the peripheral services on security and management and under ingest are Microsoft Azure specific, but everything under the Databricks Lakehouse, what you're going to see today is the same as what you would see in an Amazon Web Services implementation or a Google Cloud Platform implementation. And what this is, it follows a standard architecture that's known in the industry as a medallion architecture. In layman's terms, that's basically extract my raw data and land it in the data lake. And that's my bronze layer. It's basically the source system data. It's a direct mirror. And then from there, you do the subsequent transformation. So it follows an extract, load, and transform pattern versus typical or traditional ETL patterns. And that gold layer, and that's my curated data. That's what all my downstream reporting and visualization tools are going to consume. That's kind of where the rubber meets the road and you get an integrated data model. So you could have tables in your gold zone that have attributes from your ERP system, have attributes from your CRM system, et cetera. That's kind of where the unification takes place. But from a machine learning perspective, that raw data has a lot of value because most data scientists will tell you, if I'm going to train a model, don't give me aggregated data. So these are some of the components that we're going to focus on. And we're going to talk a little bit about the governance capabilities in the Lakehouse, the data engineering capabilities, the advanced use cases around machine learning and AI, as well as the orchestration capabilities. So John, go ahead and hop to the next slide. It was interesting that the last poll, the one that got the most votes was integration with existing systems. These are some of the systems that we've worked with recently and that we have accelerators for. And really the point of this slide, it crosses several subject areas, human resources. We've done ADP, Paylocity, Paycom. On the ERP and financial side, we've got Sage Intacct, Dynamics 365, others. The operations side, it's been most of our clientele is manufacturing, consumer goods, and healthcare. So you see a couple of manufacturing execution or MES systems there. Aviva is a popular one. And then on the healthcare side, Athena Health, Advanced MD, Liberty for pharmaceuticals is one that we've worked with. CRM, we're a big Salesforce shop. We've also done on integrations with HubSpot and vTiger, as well as disparate SQL and Oracle and MySQL sources and flat file sources. We've done Ring Central for a company that was looking to do some call center analytics, which was an interesting project. But the point here is that we haven't run into a source system or an API that we haven't been able to onboard in this technology. And I can tell you from years of traditional data warehousing, the ability to integrate and wire up a Databricks workspace to these sources and have the power of being able to do Python is it's light years ahead of using a traditional ETL tool like an Informatica or an SSIS or even Data Factory in some cases, which we're starting to move away from, given now that we have all these pipeline and job scheduling capabilities right within the Databricks platform. So that being said, I want to jump into a live demo now. I'm going to share the screen, so bear with me while we transition this over. And you should be able to see a Databricks workspace here momentarily. John, if you can just give me a thumbs up in the window that you're seeing it. Okay. So you might be asking yourself, why is he showing me the Databricks workspace? I'm a business person. I'm not an engineer. Why would I ever be in here? But the reason I wanted to bring you in here today is because we're seeing a shift and an increase in the trend that organizations are democratizing and enabling self-service and opening up the workspace to business users and operational decision makers to self-serve and do their own exploratory analysis. And I'm going to show you some new AI-driven features in here that people are leveraging out of the box to answer questions about their data, to build visualizations without writing a single line of code. Some pretty powerful stuff that they've released. But just kind of walking through this environment, we've got a catalog we can browse in here. And what I've done is brought in some sample publicly available data sets around weather, New York City taxi cab data, a generic sales order manufacturing type use case. And basically I can just browse these tables and query them just like I could in a traditional data warehouse. What's amazing about this is that this is all binary files under the hood. So in layman's terms, it's about 1/20th the cost of storage in this format versus what you would be paying on a SQL data warehouse or an Oracle data warehouse. So that in and of itself makes it much more powerful to scale to large data sets, because trying to onboard terabytes and petabytes into a relational database just isn't feasible. So this is just the lay of the land here. And one of the key components, there was an interesting question I saw come up in the chat. If you've got D365 or O365, does Fabric make more sense? I want to be clear that, we typically use Power BI as which is part of Fabric now, as our visualization tool of choice, or Tableau. We're not saying that that would be replaced by Databricks. That's kind of not a one-to-one. What we're talking about is the Spark workloads. Databricks was created and founded by the inventors of Apache Spark. That is the technology that Fabric is built on. That's what Snowflake is using for their Spark workloads. And what we're able to do, and why we think that Databricks is more appealing, aside from being more mature, is that you can really fine-tune the compute to be sized just to what you need and what you're going to use. Whereas Fabric is a bit more of an enterprise grade tool that has a tiered pricing structure. So as I move up the chain to each tier, it gets more expensive, and I can't fine tune it as well. And I actually am in a situation where I have to pay for more compute than I actually need. You don't have that problem, which I think this is why it's an appealing solution for small to mid-market businesses, which is typically where we work. So that's just, hopes that addresses the first question in the poll. I wanted to touch on that a little bit, but certainly, if you've already adopted Fabric, Microsoft usually catches up, and they're investing a lot of money into it. And either way, it's about the Lakehouse generic architecture, but most of our clients are running Databricks. So what I want to show you now is a relatively new feature called Genie, which is an AI-driven component here. And we're going to do some natural language querying of our data set. So what I've done is I've just created a simple example here. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got a simple sales order type data set. All I've done is ingested the raw tables. This is raw data. It hasn't been modeled in any way. It hasn't been related. It hasn't been transformed. Already, as soon as I bring this up, it's already inferring questions I may want to ask about it because it's that smart. It's able to just profile this data and understand what it's about. So I'm just going to try to trick it and ask it some of my own questions here. So I'm just asking it, can you display a breakdown of order lines by nation and year? It's going to think for a few seconds, and then it should come back with a description of what it did, a table, and in some cases, a visualization that will show me exactly what's happening. So yeah, this report shows the number of order lines grouped by nation and year, combines the data from orders, customers, and nations to count how many order lines were placed each year for each nation. That's great. It lists the countries each year, number of order lines. Gives me a little visualization down here, albeit a little bit busy, complete with tooltips without writing a single line of code. Now I'm just going to say, all right, this chart here is a little too noisy for me. There's too much here. Let's just distill it down to Canada, and I want to see it by month in a line chart. So I just throw that in there, and it should, assuming the demo gods are smiling, it should come back in a few seconds with the data set as well as the line chart that I requested. So again, very powerful. And as you can see, it took a couple seconds, didn't have to write any code. So just visualize yourself with your sitting in your Lakehouse with your ERP data, your CRM data sitting side by side. All we had to do is onboard the tables, and business users can already start gaining insights through natural language from their data. I'm going to throw one more at it, a little more complex one that may make it think a little harder and longer. I'm just going to say, rank the top 10 parts sold in 1998. And this should come back with the top 10 parts, hopefully by name. Sometimes it comes back with the ID, and I got to do another iteration to say, no, I want the part name because I don't have all my parts memorized. And it should come back, and yeah, so you see how it came back with the part key. So this is great, like gives me my part counts. It tells me that part key 999512 is my top selling part. But now I don't know what part 999512 is. So I'm just going to tell it, please redisplay this using the part name instead of the part key. And it should fix it and tell me what the name of the best-selling part is, or the top 10 best-selling parts. It has the context of my previous prompt, right? Similar to like ChatGPT, right? Like I didn't have to say, restate, I want the top 10 parts sold. It knows that context, so it's conversational. And now I can clearly see that the steel, moccasin, violet, papaya, cyan is my best-selling part. Very cool stuff. And, again, I could go all day on this. I'm happy to have a breakout if folks are interested in learning more. I want to be clear that all of these features that I'm going to go through, including this Genie, none of this you have to pay additional for. As soon as you spin up a Databricks workspace, which takes a matter of minutes in your Azure tenant, you have access to all of these features. I can't stress that enough. And it's all pay as you go. You don't have to make any upfront initial investment. So I really encourage folks that are looking to modernize their platform to consider spinning this up and kicking the tires on it. It is a tremendous platform. Now they've released another new feature, which is pretty cool. It's called AI BI. It's under this dashboards feature. I'm just going to start with an example of a dashboard that was built without writing a single line of code. And then we're going to build one ourselves. And I'm going to show you how easy it is. But this is pretty robust, right? I mean, it's on par with the visuals that you get in a Power BI or a Tableau. And I didn't have to write any code. So I can kind of, slice and dice. It's reactive. And this was kind of the end result of some tweaking. But we're going to start from scratch. And I'm going to show you how to build one of these from scratch. So all I'm going to do here is say create dashboard. Okay, and it immediately kind of walks me through in a wizard-like fashion, like what I need to do. So I'm just going to click the data tab to get going. And say I'm not an engineer, I'm not a SQL developer, and I'm just going to say add data. I'm not going to write SQL queries. Let's just add some data. I'm going to come out here to my sample data set. Let's just do one with AccuWeather for the time being. And I'm just going to grab the daily weather information in imperial units. So just a single table here just to get started and to demonstrate this. This is going to run a query for a few seconds, bring in the data, and now I can jump back to my canvas here and move and start creating visualization. So what I'm going to do is just click this button here, drop this on the form, and then I'm going to start asking it to display some data. It's probably going to remember some of the ones that I asked it already. Yeah. So I'm just going to do average daily temperature by city as a line chart. Let's see what it comes back with. Should take a couple seconds, hopefully not much longer. It should be pretty quick. And then there you go. So I've got my average temperature on my y-axis, my time series on the x-axis, and each city as a line item in here. So let's keep going. Let's just do a couple more. And, as you can see, I didn't have to write a single line of code to do this. So let's just I'm going to just do something different here. Predominant wind direction by city. Let's see what it does there. This should give me, it gives me a little bar chart here with my cities. And now say I don't want to do a bar chart. I just want to do a scatter plot. I can easily change that with a click of a button, pie chart, whatever makes the most sense. So hopefully you're seeing, the ability to self-serve on this. It's really just a matter of getting the raw data into the lake, and then end users can actually start profiling and working with this themselves without having to rely on the IT department or a report developer to build them a data model and corresponding dashboard. Now, for some of the IT folks in the room, assuming we have some, you might be asking, well, what about my governance? So Databricks comes with a full catalog managed governance framework called Unity Catalog. And what this allows me to do is secure out anything in the catalog by either catalog, object, or even field level, right? Where I can restrict data for different groups of users. It's all controlled through Entra, or formerly Azure Active Directory. And so think of an example where I've got human resources data or payroll data living side by side with CRM and ERP data. Certainly, operational folks will be able to get employee information and employee roster counts, head counts, things like that. But we're not going to want everybody to be able to see sensitive compensation information, right? So this framework here, built in Unity Catalog, you can govern that accordingly and restrict out, different pieces of data from different groups of people, so that you can confidently and comfortably open this up to end users and know that you're not going to have a breach of sensitive information. So the governance capability is there, the self-service capability is there, and in addition, we can now do pipelines and schedule them right within Databricks. So traditionally, you saw on my architecture slide, we were using Data Factory. You might be familiar with traditional ETL tools like an Informatica or a Data Stage or SSIS. We can really do all of this internally now. And I can tell you from years of working with Data Factory, it has all the same logging capabilities, it's tracking throughputs. So the direction we're moving in is to move our pipelines into Databricks and to use the job scheduler within here. Again, comes back to that concept of a unified platform for all your data and analytics needs, kind of a one-stop shop, so to speak. Finally, what I wanted to talk to you about is all of the out-of-the-box models. When you get further along on that maturity curve, there are several popular large language models and predictive models available to you out of the box. So you can see here, I've got Meta's Llama 3, I got Mistral, Whisper, Chronos, all sorts of models that have been trained for thousands, if not tens of thousands of hours that you can start leveraging with your data. You can just come in here, start creating experiments, start training a model with your data day one. I mean, that's even light years ahead of where we were, 2-3 years ago, where you'd have to hire a data scientist and he'd have to code some machine learning algorithm in R in order to get going on this, and it would be months and possibly years before you started getting any results. You get data onboarded, you could start training a model day one. So soup to nuts, this is a very comprehensive platform, and just wanted to this is really only scratching the surface. If any of you folks want to do a deep dive on any of this, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be more than happy to meet with you and deep dive into this stuff and go from there. So that being said, John, I want to kick it back over to the deck and just go through a brief case study, and then we can move on to the next poll. But one real world use case that we had here was a manufacturing consumer goods client. And in their particular scenario, their challenge was that they had multiple instances of ERP systems across multiple sites. So they didn't have a unified view of their entire organization to monitor and see how they're tracking at the enterprise level. So they had reporting at the site level, and then they were spending a lot of time trying to combine and aggregate the data across the sites in spreadsheets to create a single spreadsheet for all the organization, just for some basic order and sales tracking. And that was time consuming, inefficient. Business users weren't getting reports in a timely fashion. So we partnered with them, stood up a Databricks Lakehouse. We're able to quickly ingest all the ERP sites and then unify them. That's really the critical piece here. So we got multiple disparate ERP systems. We're able to create that unified model in Databricks, right? It would have been significantly more inefficient if we were trying to do that in a traditional data warehouse. But Databricks, it was very seamless, gave them that single pane of glass into their enterprise data, and then started answering questions around order tracking, profitability, pricing variability, sales and order analysis, et cetera. And the key business outcome here is, aside from giving them the single pane of glass view into their data, they're able to make proactive decisions now. And they're able to spot trends in fluctuations in demand where they need to surge staffing in their warehouse to handle the significant demand. Before, they were being completely reactive. We had a surge in demand and we couldn't fill all the orders in time, right? Now they can look back and have that single pane of glass to spot trends, know how the ebb and flow is going to go throughout the year, and staff accordingly. So that's one of the key business outcomes there. Another key business outcome is they're now leveraging the Lakehouse reporting capabilities for their quarterly board meetings. Their controller was spending a lot of time piecemealing together financial reports going into the quarterly board meetings, and now we've essentially helped him automate a lot of that and save him, in his own words, significant amount of hours per month. So that's just one of many case studies. I'd be happy to talk to some of the other industry ones. Like I said, we do a lot of work in healthcare as well as consumer goods. Healthcare has got its own set of challenges around revenue cycle management and forecasting when you're going to receive, when claims are going to get paid after they're adjudicated. And, I did see a few healthcare folks on the line. So if anyone wants to talk about that separately, don't hesitate to reach out. So that being said, I'm just going to, before we move on to the next poll, I'm just going to check the chat to see if we have anything else in here. Doesn't look like we do. I don't see anything in Q&A. So John, back to you if you want to open up the next poll.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. All right. Polling question number 3. Which aspect of the data lakehouse excites you the most? Advanced analytics and AI, faster decision-making, unified data access, and predictive and prescriptive insights.
Advanced analytics and AI. All right. That's interesting. Yeah. And again, would encourage you folks to, if you've got an Azure tenant or AWS tenant, it's a couple clicks to spin up a Databricks workspace, and happy to talk with you through that. Because, I think that companies that are adopting this framework now are going to have a competitive advantage over their competitors who are not doing it. So, this is really the future. And, whether or not it's a Databricks or a Fabric or a Snowflake, data platform modernization and enabling yourself for those advanced use cases is key. And you don't want to be late on that.
Yeah. So I guess, Mike, you talked a lot about, this Databricks architecture. And one of the earlier polling questions was, hey, I'm a little nervous about the ROI. Like, what is it going to cost to spin one of these things up? And how much is it going to cost me ongoing to do that? And how hard is it going to be for me to get data out of my system into this system? We've tried that before. What does it look like to do that in the new world?
So in the case of that case study, that manufacturing consumer goods client, they're on a pay as you go. So there was no upfront commit, and they're spending, between $400 and $500 a month on an ongoing basis for the entire thing. Right. And so it doesn't require individual licenses. Their entire company is accessing this data and leveraging it for a few $100 a month. So the barrier to entry is pretty low compared to where it was a few years ago, where people were, making upfront investments in hardware. But there is a pricing algorithm, a pricing calculator that we could run through when we understand things like number of data sources, volume of data, frequency of refresh. We can get a rough order of magnitude of what the ongoing spend would be. And then if you do end up adopting this platform, you have the option to go with reserved instance pricing, right? Where 1 or 3 year commit, you could save upwards of 40% on the pay as you go pricing. But most clients stick with the pay as you go for, about the first year to 2 years. And then, once they're really cooking and getting into those advanced use cases, then they'll start to have the conversation about making a reserved instance commit, which will save them money, but would require an upfront investment. But to get started, the pay as you go, barrier to entry is pretty low. And if folks are concerned about, the spend, be happy to talk with them about their specific situation and try to size up what the ongoing spend would look like.
Yeah, and I think another key point, I think, Mike, is the work that you and the team have done around onboarding these data sources. That those connectors that you had, that slide that we had around the connectors. I think it's important to note that will just continue to grow and evolve and change and add, new connectors. And basically, once we have a connector, that's pretty reusable across, different lake houses. So, um,
Yeah,
and
that's a great point. And I just want to add, sorry to interrupt, but that Sage Intacct is a perfect example of that. Those familiar with Sage, they have a data delivery service. We're actually going direct against the API. Works great. We're about to implement this for the 5th time. One of the clients was using a Sage Intacct add-on called Nectari. They were having a lot of problems with it, and we wired up the API calls to their Sage Intacct GL and onboarded it, and we've seamlessly automated a lot of P&Ls and financial statements that way. And we're about to kick off another project on Monday where we're going to reuse those same API calls, that same Databricks notebook, to ingest Sage Intacct. And that's just one of many examples of reusability and acceleration that we have. But any of those other systems on that screen, and if you have a system that's not on that slide, I think it's still worth having a conversation if you're having challenges getting data out of it.
yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing too is that typically what we do is we bring in the data, like you said, in the raw format, and we can get data into the raw format pretty easily, and then come back later to automate the ingestion process over and over again, right? So typically we get a good kind of working model to begin with, and then divergent paths on that project to say you're not beholden to getting all the automation done before you can get insights going.
Yeah, that's right. It's not like we have to wait until, everything is in the gold layer and everybody's created pixel perfect reports in Power BI, and it's going to be, a year before you see some results. Like we can spin up a Lakehouse within a couple of hours, get it wired up, get the networking configuration to the source systems, and start and get data flowing, usually same day, if not, within the first week of inception. And once you get that data ingested, you saw the capabilities there. Now, it's not to say it's going to replace the pixel perfect reporting and the need for that curated gold zone, but it's an and, not an or, right? It can augment your data estate, empower users in the short term while you still kind of work on those long-term goals in parallel.
Yeah, so most of the clients that we're dealing with, even though they implemented Databricks as their Lakehouse architecture, we're still building Power BI reports on the
Oh
front
yeah,
end to
yeah.
make them pixel perfect and the insights, accessible to their organization.
That's right. And we've got several samples of that, like P&Ls are a good example of that. Financial reporting. Like you're not going to want to, I don't think, use the genie to put together your P&L before a board meeting, right? You're gonna want accounting involved in that. They're gonna want a pixel perfect report or an AR waterfall and that type of example. So I think there's still very much a need for curation and dashboard development, but at the same time, we can start enabling businesses to do their own discovery and to self-serve on it. Because really, the first step in the process is, getting a handle on the quality and completeness of your data, right? Because you're not going to get to those advanced use cases and further down the maturity curve if you've got bad data, right? So this platform, just allowing users to explore and discover the raw data, can help uncover data quality issues that you must solve if you ever want to get quality machine learning and AI use cases out of your data. Because just like traditional BI, it's garbage in, garbage out.
All right, one question from Matt have you integrated with Uninet? That was one of the Q&A questions.
I believe we did, John, right? At
Yeah, there's kind of there's a few different versions of Uninet, kind of like there's a lot of different versions with Sage,
no,
right? You got
okay.
Sage Intacct, Sage 300, Sage 100, Sage whatever.
Hmm.
But Uninet, we did integrate with Uninet CRM, CoCentral CRM with one of our clients. I don't know, Matt, if you're asking about the ERP side of Uninet. If that's the case, I don't think we've done that yet. But again, one of those tools and one of those platforms that I think we could, pretty quickly stand up, the integration.
Yeah, I can't imagine the API structure is much different than the one that we did. It's a REST API, I'd have to assume, and I don't think it would be anything that we can't handle.
Yeah, and it's typically Uninet is typically used for government contractors, just like you said, Matt. So it's got to be high security, high reporting and auditability. So
Right.
okay. Yeah, thanks, Matt, for the question. I think at this point we will hopefully be working on that integration at some point here in the future, but to this point we haven't integrated with Uninet directly. All right. I think that was all the questions. Again, thank you everyone for your time this afternoon and today. I just really appreciate it. Mike, thank you as always for all the work and the knowledge and the understanding that you have and the client satisfaction. I think I just really appreciate all that you and the team do.
Yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate everyone's time, and don't hesitate to reach out if you want to talk further or do a deep dive on any of these.
All right. With that, it's a wrap.